One of New York's top elected officials was indicted by a federal grand jury last week. Attorney General Letitia James is accused of committing mortgage fraud in Virginia. James is now the latest of President Donald Trump's adversaries to be targeted by his Department of Justice. The years-long animosity between them includes a civil fraud case in which she'd accused Trump, his family, and their businesses of overinflating the value of their properties. We break down the case against James and what it all means on today's Story of the Day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from the Wild Center in Tupper Lake, dedicated to strengthening visitors' connections to the natural world. More at wildcenter.org.
Hi, I'm Kara Chapman. It's Monday, October 13th. Up first, subsidized flights serving the North Country's airports will continue to fly during the government shutdown, for now. The Essential Air Service is a federal grant program that pays airlines to run flights to North Country airports like those in Watertown, Messina, and Saranac Lake. Under the current government shutdown, airlines were told that their federal funding was set to run out by yesterday. Then, the Department of Transportation said it had found additional funding to keep flights going until November 2nd. Historically, the EAS program has not been at risk during government shutdowns. It's funded by appropriations from Congress and fees paid by airlines that use American airspace. 3 North Country colleges are getting money to help make the outdoors more accessible for students. The funding comes from a new SUNY initiative aimed at expanding outdoor learning and recreation for students. David Escobar has the details.
SUNY Adirondack, SUNY Canton, and SUNY Plattsburgh are among 13 campuses statewide receiving new funding through a program called Outdoors for All. The initiative is providing $8,000 grants to each school to help them expand outdoor programs, improve access to natural spaces, and encourage academic and career opportunities and sustainability. At SUNY Adirondack, the money will go towards building a year-round outdoor classroom and recreation area designed to be accessible for people with disabilities. That's according to a press release from the SUNY Chancellor. SUNY Canton plans to offer beginner skills clinics and wilderness first aid training. It'll also make outdoor gear and first aid kits available for students to rent. And at SUNY Plattsburgh, the funding will support new maps and signage along the Ruger Woods Trail to make the campus's wooded paths easier to navigate. The Outdoors for All program is part of SUNY's broader effort to expand climate and sustainability education across all 64 campuses. David Escobar, North Country Public Radio.
The new graphite mine in St. Lawrence County is seeking $1 million from the New York Power Authority to expand operations. As Amy Feiereisel reports, it's the next step for America's first graphite mine in decades.
The Empire State Mine's Fowler facility is located just outside Gouverneur. It began processing its own mined graphite in September. Until now, it's been a zinc mine, but a sizable deposit of graphite was discovered in 2022. That's a big deal because China controls about 3/4 of the world's graphite supply, and the Gouverneur mine is the first U.S. producer of graphite in over 70 years. Titan Mining president and CEO Rita Adiani spoke to NCPR last month.
The United States consumes between 70 to 80,000 metric tons of graphite. We'll be producing 40,000.
Graphite is the largest component in lithium-ion batteries. It's also used in tech like phones and computers. It took several years and about $4.5 million to get the graphite mining going. Now, the mine wants to expand. As the Watertown Daily Times reports, the mine is seeking $1 million from the New York Power Authority to retain its current 135 employees, bring on an additional 55, and establish a micronization and purification facility. Last week, the Northern New York Power Proceeds Allocation Board recommended approving that funding. The New York Power Authority Board of Trustees still has to vote for final approval. Amy Feiereisel, North Country Public Radio.
After pressure from President Donald Trump, federal prosecutors secured an indictment of New York Attorney General Letitia James last week. She's the latest of Trump's adversaries to be prosecuted. Andrew Waite and Jimmy Vielkind of the New York Public News Network break down the case and its implications.
All right, so just to start, can you break down the charges against Attorney General James?
Yeah, this centers around a house in Norfolk, Virginia that James bought in 2020. Prosecutors say that this property was declared by James to be a secondary residence in documents she filed when getting a federally backed mortgage for the house. But they say she ran it as an investment property and rented it to a family of 3. So this alleged mislisting let James get a lower interest rate and get savings of around $19,000.
So what's her response?
Well, she says that she's done nothing wrong and that this is just another example of President Trump weaponizing the justice system. So the Attorney General's office put out a statement from James herself late Thursday night in which she talked about how she would continue to do her job.
These charges are baseless, and the president's own public statements make clear that his only goal is political retribution at any cost.
James went on to note that the prosecutor in this case is U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan. And until recently, she wasn't a prosecutor. She was a White House lawyer and someone who had been a personal attorney for President Trump. Now, Trump nominated her to her position as the acting U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia after he pushed out a guy named Eric Siebert, who was a career prosecutor. And, you know, sometimes with President Trump, you don't have to wonder about the reason because he just tells you on social media. So he said in a Truth Social post in late September that he was firing Siebert because he had not taken any action in bringing cases against some of Trump's adversaries. That included James, as well as former FBI Director James Comey.
So remind us, why would Trump have it out for James here?
Well, you know, it really goes back to Trump's first term. James was first elected in 2018. She called Trump illegitimate, and she said she was going to really scrutinize the Republican president and his business. And, you know, over the course of that first term, she often joined attorney generals from other states in bringing lawsuits against federal actions. And, you know, that's sort of kind of been the back and forth. It's something that is continuing to this day on various fronts. I think there are probably at least a half dozen, if not more, open lawsuits where James is suing the federal government. But the real focus here comes in 2022. James brought a case against Trump, his adult children, and his businesses, saying that they systematically overinflated the value of properties that Trump had. And this enabled him to obtain better loan terms when he was borrowing money.
Well, that sounds mighty familiar given the case against James.
Yeah, exactly. And this is why Republicans say that James is getting a taste of her own medicine. Anyway, that case worked its way through the courts. Both James and Trump personally attended these proceedings in 2023 and into 2024. And it ended with James securing a penalty of about $350 million against Trump. You know, also this sort of poked a hole in the notion that he was a very successful businessman, which was pretty politically damaging. So Trump has called it a witch hunt, all caps. I don't know if I want to scream it all caps here. And, you know, he said that he wanted James to resign as recently as this weekend. I should note that an appeals court threw out that penalty, and the whole matter is subject to a little bit further litigation between Trump and James in New York's highest court.
That was Jimmy Vielkind and Andrew Waite of the New York Public News Network. Before we go, it's day one of our annual fall fundraiser. We're raising $450,000 that we need to keep bringing you the important local news that you need. Think of the stories you just heard. We covered higher education, industry, state and national politics. These stories are available to everyone as a public service, but they cost money to report on and deliver to you. Your support so far has kept NCPR moving in the face of challenges we've never seen before. You know, the loss of our federal funding over the summer. And we thank you so much for that. But the work is not done. We need to raise this $450,000, and you can help us get there by going right now to ncpr.org/give. There are a few options. You can renew or increase your donation amount, make an additional donation, or donate for the first time and select your thank you gift, of course. Again, you can do that right now by going to ncpr.org/give. Help us reach our $450,000 goal, help sustain NCPR in the years to come, and thank you so much for supporting this service. We have more news all the time on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by Christopher Watts of Canton and Adrian Carr of Plattsburgh. I'm Kara Chapman, North Country Public Radio.